handle all the content we produce, all of our videos as well on YouTube and elsewhere, on Twitch like here. We also have a betting platform and other things like that. Winners League, which is a competitive platform. So we're kind of an all-encompassing esports entity, I guess, is what we are.
That sounds awesome. Now, esports is a really big field. So where did you personally get your start in esports?
Well, I started playing games competitively back in the 90s, if anyone here remembers that time long, long ago, the before time, right? I got started playing back then and just kind of naturally got into playing games competitively online. To me, it was no different than playing football, which is another competitive outlet for me. And that led to my working as an intern for a company, a media company, and that led to getting some experience in the esports field as a professional. I got back involved in it about 6 years ago and working in it on a more serious level ever since then.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what I'm hearing is it sounds like you actually don't really have to take a direct path, right? So I think a lot of times people stress about how, okay, well, if I want to really get to a high level in a certain area, I have to really only work in that area. But it sounds like you had a couple of jobs along the way, like working in media isn't necessarily directly related to esports, but it still gives you really, some of the experience that is relevant in esports.
Yeah, I've had a few different jobs over the years, all of them within media. And I think the thing that I try to tell people, especially young folks who want to get involved in the space, is you need to know what you actually want to do, because you can't just work esports, right? I work in media and I happen to cover esports, really. I work as an editor-in-chief, but I happen to work for an esports company. So figuring out if you want to work as a writer or in social media or in event planning, or whatever the case may be, business development, that's, I think, the first step to getting involved, because those skills will carry over to this industry like any other one.
Yeah, that's definitely great advice. And this might be a difficult question, so I don't know if you have an answer to it, but if somebody is not sure, right, about the specific area, because there's so many in esports, like you said,
Sure.
do you have advice on how to sort of test the waters? Is there a good way to get a better understanding of what all the options are?
There may be. Esports is a pretty diverse field, but it's also a pretty nascent industry. It's only been around for about 20 years in its modern form. It may seem like it's come a long way, and it has come a long way in a short period of time, but it is a short period of time. Relative to most industries, it's very young. So we're still figuring out what jobs even fit into the industry, I think. So if someone has some skills they want to bring to the table, we're happy to see them, happy to have them. I would say get involved as a volunteer, maybe be involved on Discord and community locations like that. Just talk to folks, be involved in organizations that are in and around competitive gaming. And that will show you naturally what opportunities exist, I think, in the space. That's probably the best way to kind of get your feet wet, other than just asking people like me, what jobs do you have on offer right
now? What jobs do you have on offer right now?
Some freelance writing positions. So if anyone here wants to write freelance, I guess you can search me out on Twitter or wherever else you like to, and or come to my doorstep, ask me. Probably not that actually right now, but Twitter's fine. Yeah, Twitter's good actually.
Twitter's fine.
Yeah, you can find me there.
What is your Twitter handle?
I'm at Jared Wynn, my full name.
Jared Wynn. That makes that easy. All right, excellent. So you said that you got esports is a pretty early industry, although 20 years, I think to some of us might feel like forever. Some of us are only 20 years old, although not me. I remember the 90s. I'm one of those people. So if it's sort of a nation industry and you got started at the beginning, tell us what you've seen in terms of the growth, right? And where it's going specifically.
Sure. I mean, the growth has been tremendous. It's gone from really a community run, almost like a garage band sort of thing, to being big business. I mean, we have kind of a roll call of big investors, Drake and all kinds of sports teams owners now who are owning this industry, owning the space. Back in my day, we didn't really have investors to begin with. It was just a bunch of community run events. I mean, if we had a prize, that was kind of a fun bonus. Like you got a t-shirt for winning an event, Nowadays, you might get several t-shirts, let's say, or maybe the money to buy a whole t-shirt line. It's a lot different over that time, and I think it's going to be a lot different in 10 years now as well. 10 years from now, it's going to become more normalized and be more part of our everyday expectation of what is out there in competition. So it's changed a lot. It's changed so much it's hard to really give a simple answer to that, honestly. Just imagine going from the garage to going to that big 80,000 seat arena, and that's really what it's been. That's the change right there.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely, money makes things work, right? So once we got the investors, it definitely it exploded as an industry. So I know it's hard to predict the future, but in your experience, what would you say are some areas of esports that are going to be sort of the next hot thing? So like we just talked about VR and specifically multiplayer VR, but are there other branches of esports that you think are really going to take off in the next few years?
Everyone does mention VR. I think with VR, the issue with competitive gaming and VR is that input is so important, and having an instant response to your input is so important in any kind of competitive gaming. That's why mouse and keyboard are the methods used for all the best competitive games, because it's the most accurate way to input into the game, right? And it's harder
Right.
to do sometimes with a virtual reality system where you're kind of figuring in different UI and how do you move in the space, all these things. In 100 years, I'm sure we'll all be in a virtual space, just living there to begin with. This will all be a new conversation. But I think we'll see more and more integration with companies that have been around in media and in sports for a long time already. They'll get more and more involved with these sports. It's funny, back in the day, again, I'll pull that one out. We used to really think that esports needed television. Our big goal was let's get it on TV, then everyone will see how great it is. Now that seems so passe, right? TV is kind of a thing of the past.
Mm-hmm.
Esports was developed in streaming, and streaming is not just the future, it's the present, really. So there have been some esports events on television, but really leaning further into the streaming angle of things and being even more digitally fluent and being a part of that growth and development, that's where the future of esports is. And really, that's a question of what's the future of streaming in general. So I wish I could have a good answer for that. I might have an even better job if I did. But yeah, yeah, I think it's going to be just fine.
Well, I like the answer. I think streaming is definitely a really, really, really good answer that, in terms of, what's sort of the next hot thing, or like you said, it's the current hot thing, really, but understanding it, because the cool thing, you talked about like, okay, we'll get it on TV, but now we're sort of, let's get it on stream. The
Yeah,
cool thing I think that the world is moving in, definitely in esports, but in other areas of the world too, is we're putting more and more power into the hands of everyday people, right? Because if you want to get something on TV, that's not just something that anyone can do, right? You have to have the right connections, you have to be in the right industry. But if you want to stream, anybody can do that. You can start streaming right now, and I think that that's great. The accessibility aspect of esports.
yeah, it's a good point. And the kind of the old comparison to make is if you want to talk to LeBron James, you might have a hard time doing it. But if you want to talk to like the best esports players, get in their stream and talk in their chat. They may not see your message among 1,000 other messages, but you can talk to them. You can connect with them in a way that's just different than what you've traditionally been able to do with any kind of celebrity figure. Anyone celebrated and venerated in that way, being able to be a part of the same digital room, the same digital space as your idols, in this case, your role models, the players you look up to, that's a big change. That's, I think, a central part of esports and its development that often gets overlooked, and it's kind of where it connects with social media. I like to say that esports is the intersection of sports, gaming, and social media. And that third part is, again, often overlooked. It's that connectivity that's available to us in this digital space that makes it so interesting to especially young persons who expect it now. They expect to be connected all the time.
Absolutely. They expect to be connected, and they expect to be able to reach, like you said, their stars. I
Yeah,
think people are much less shy about saying like, hey, I want to talk to so and so, even though, they might be rich and famous, and, I just literally bought a computer. And I think that's awesome. I think we're bringing more social equality to the world with these
yeah,
technologies. That's
yeah, for
amazing.
sure. A more global approach, people from different countries and continents for that matter, no matter your background, no matter anything about you, you kind of come together for the same reasons in the same way. And it's easier to overlook whatever those differences are when you have that equitability, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, because you said I actually really like the way you described esports, that it's at the crossroads of sports, gaming, and social media. So if we talk about the sports aspect of it, if somebody is really just set on becoming a professional athlete in esports rather than any other area of esports, do you have any advice on what they should do? Like, are there, should they major in esports? Are there, should they practice a specific game, like, or specific skills? Like, what can they do to really set themselves up?
Well, have a backup plan first of all, but I would
Okay.
say definitely focus your vision. You want to play one game, and it needs to be a game that you're passionate about. If you're just playing a game to go pro, and that's the only reason why you're not going to make it, because the amount of practice, the amount of study required to go professional in any competitive game is so great. It's the same as playing tennis or golf or anything like that professionally. You got to put the hours in, and if you don't like what you're doing, you're not going to want to put those hours in. You're not going to enjoy that. If you do love the game so much and you want to try to go pro, practice it, get in touch with your community around it, get on Discord again, talk to people around your level of play and be involved and just let it go from there. Practice, think about your game from think about how you can improve, I would say. Try to improve every day. Think about what you can do better in the game. That's going to be a big step. And eventually, if you're able to go pro, that will reveal itself to you. You won't have to guess about it. You'll see your level of play rise up where it needs to be. And if you don't get there, that's fine. You can just enjoy the game because you love the game. That's why it's important, I think, to love the game first, because there's no guarantee of making it as a professional. So it's important to enjoy your time with the game and enjoy playing it for hours a day as you'll need to before you think about what your future is as a professional with the game.
I think that's great advice, just thinking of it as, as your job. And that's what you got to put in the hours and you got so that you get skilled enough to go pro. But I hear you saying, okay, have a backup plan and also, understand that it's not a guarantee. So um, sort of given those two things, it sounds like it's a very competitive field. What's your assessment of how competitive the field is and how difficult it is to really make it as a pro athlete?
It's tough. It's kind of like making it as a pro athlete in traditional sports, right? And making it as one. I mentioned golf or tennis, you could say football, basketball, what have you. It's pretty tough. You've got millions and millions of players worldwide, and you've got a very small number of them who are actually going to be able to play professionally. That's why I say again, play for the enjoyment and love of the game. And then if you're able to make it as a professional, if that becomes an option later on, that's awesome. Pursue that to the fullest extent as long as you have your bases covered and the support of your family and or the support of whoever you need support from. As long as you have that behind you, great, go for it. But don't make that your first consideration. Make your first consideration enjoying the game and making sure that you are approaching it the right way. And again, if you're able to go pro, that will come with time naturally.
That's awesome. Well, I feel like you've given us like a very solid understanding of the esports industry and also very solid advice on how to pursue it, like very, very grounded. I really appreciate that. So we only have just a couple of minutes left. So do you want to just tell us, what do you find most interesting in the industry or what are you most excited for in the future of esports?
Well, I find interesting that it's developing the way that it is. I love being a part of a developing space. I love being a part of things that are new and that are going in new directions. There are so many established lines of industry around, even with sports, games that have been around for decades and decades now. Esports is such a new thing that if someone wants to come along and have new ideas and bring those to the fore, they can. They can be a part of the critical development of the entire industry. And that's very exciting to me, not just for myself, but for others as well, to see that development happening around us, to see it kind of changing shape as it grows and becomes more mature. So that's what I love most about esports is its development and how new it is and how exciting it is in that regard. And I'm looking forward to being a part of that development, hopefully for a long time to come.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. As a reminder, it's Jared Wynn is Jared's tag on Twitter if you'd like to reach out to him. And the company is hiring for freelance writers, as we heard. But other than that, feel free. I'm sorry, I'm inviting people to reach out to you, but I'm assuming it would be all right if people reached out to you, our viewers, and had more questions for you about esports and just breaking into the industry.
Sure, be happy to talk. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been very enlightening, and we are ready to go to break.
Thank you.